My friends, have you ever considered the classic riddle about the length of summer vacation typically? It lasts around 104 days before school returns to end the fun. Our generation often struggles to find productive ways to spend this time. And we all cherish the warm weather and outdoor events. Eventually everything concludes. But imagine a scenario where summer never ended and instead persisted for millions of years. This actually occurred in Earth history during a span of 10 million years of constant summer. While a never-ending sunny season might sound ideal, it was far from a paradise, especially since it took place during the Cretaceous period, a time already challenging for life. This event is scientifically known as the Cretaceous Thermal Maximum, or the longest summer in history. Most people associate this era with the Tyrannosaurus rex, but this extreme heat began about 100 million years ago at the onset. Late Cretaceous, long before that famous predator evolved, the planet was already quite chaotic, with massive dinosaurs like Spinosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus coexisting in the same environments, while Giganotosaurus roamed South America simultaneously. During the Cenomanian stage, global temperatures reached extreme heights, with mid-latitude seas hitting 31 degrees Celsius, which is about 88 degrees Fahrenheit. Swimming in the ocean would have felt like being in a heated indoor pool, and global averages were 10 degrees Celsius higher than today, leading to tropical conditions and vast forests even at the poles, which were 30 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than modern times. Walking in Antarctica back then would feel like a stroll in Switzerland, but with far more dangerous wildlife lurking nearby. This extreme warmth was only the beginning of a much larger event driven by an invisible force in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide levels were rising significantly, turning the air into a thick soup of greenhouse gases. Surprisingly, the birth of the Atlantic Ocean played a major role in this change. Around 180 million years ago, the Atlantic did not exist, but the breakup of the supercontinent Pangaea created a rift between Europe, North America, Africa, and South America. As these continents drifted apart, water filled the gaps, but the process was violent, involving massive earthquakes and intense underwater volcanism. This activity released enormous amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and the rising sea levels submerged land, reducing the number of forests available to absorb these gases. The newly formed ocean also altered global heat transport, making the oceans more stagnant and trapping even more warmth and carbon dioxide. This reached a peak during the Turonian stage roughly 94 million years ago, which marked the most brutal phase of this long summer. Carbon dioxide concentrations possibly reached 2,000 parts per million, which is 7 times higher than pre-industrial levels. This resulted in the hottest point on Earth in the last 200 million years, with mid-latitude sea temperatures averaging 38 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Tropical conditions expanded into regions like modern Russia and Canada, while the poles remained temperate. These shifts also intensified the hydrological cycle, causing extreme weather patterns where humid areas became much wetter and dry regions turned into desolate wastelands. The geography of the world became fractured as sea levels reached their highest point in history, rising up to 300 meters above current levels, effectively drowning coastlines and dividing continents into smaller islands. The rising sea levels and intense heat created an abundance of warm tropical waters, but these conditions were not favorable for all marine life. Interestingly, the mega summer led to the decline of 2 iconic groups of marine reptiles. The Ichthyosaurs, which had dominated the oceans for over 150 million years, struggled to adapt to the rapidly changing underwater environments, and eventually went extinct. Similarly, the Plesiosaurs, which were the undisputed apex predators of their time, began to disappear. These massive creatures had skulls filled with lethal teeth, and were efficient killers that even restricted the success of prehistoric sharks. However, the collapse of their ecosystems and the extinction of their primary food sources like the Ichthyosaurs caused the Plesiosaurs to wither away until they were gone. While certain groups suffered, others thrived in the wake of this thermal event. Sharks in particular experienced significant comeback as their competitors vanished before the thermal maximum. Sharks were overshadowed by marine reptiles, but the long summer reduced competition and allowed them to diversify and grow to massive sizes. This era saw the rise of Cretaceous and Carcharodon, which were powerful predators reaching lengths similar to modern great whites. Another giant was Cretaceous, a mackerel shark that could grow over 11 meters long and weigh multiple tons, making it larger than a whale shark and far more aggressive with its blade-like teeth and powerful jaws. This period also saw the emergence of the first mosasaurs such as Ichthyosaurus and early forms of Tylosaurus, which would eventually become the new kings of the sea after the summer ended. The mosasaurs flourished and filled the niches left by the extinct Plesiosaurs and Ichthyosaurs. While the oceans underwent dramatic changes, the land was also transformed by the oppressive heat and shifting climates. Unlike marine life, dinosaurs did not face widespread extinction during this thermal maximum, but instead underwent a massive shakeup that made them even more dominant. The increased carbon dioxide and warmer temperatures led to a diversification of flora, creating lush environments that supported giant herbivores. Sauropods in particular reached staggering proportions during this era. South America became home to some of the largest creatures to ever walk the earth, including the massive Patagodon, which weighed as much as 7 elephants. However, the peak of this trend was the Argentinosaurus, a behemoth that could reach 80 tons and 36 meters in length. This animal was so large that you could fit 6 diplodocus inside just one individual. These giants played a crucial role in shaping their ecosystems, much like modern elephants, but on a significantly larger scale. The abundance of these massive prey items also led to the evolution of formidable predators like the Argentinosaurus, Mapusaurus, Meraxes, and Pteranodon, were all vicious theropods with serrated teeth designed to cause catastrophic bleeding, each being many times larger than a polar bear. These predators likely hunted in groups to take down the massive sauropods in their environment. Other strange theropods like the herbivorous Therizinosaurus and the bird-like Gigantoraptor also thrived during this time. Gigantoraptor was essentially an 8-ton ostrich standing as tall as a giraffe, and likely occupied an omnivorous niche in the humid forests of Mongolia and China. Overall, the longest summer in Earth history fundamentally altered the course of evolution and shaped the world into a land of giants. Temperatures eventually began to cool down again. Thanks for watching, and until next time on Extinct Zoo. One of the most significant consequences of the Cretaceous Thermal Maximum was a phenomenon known as Oceanic Anoxic Event 2, which occurred at the boundary between the Cenomanian and Turonian stages. As the oceans became incredibly warm and stagnant, they lost much of their dissolved oxygen, which led to a massive die-off of marine organisms that could not adapt to these suffocating conditions. This lack of oxygen meant that the organic remains of dead plankton and algae did not decompose but were instead buried on the ocean floor in thick layers of sediment. These layers eventually transformed into the massive deposits of black shale that we find today, and are the primary reason why this period is so important for the modern energy industry. Much of the crude oil and natural gas that humanity relies on today was actually formed during these millions of years of extreme heat and stagnant seas. Planet effectively stored away vast amounts of carbon and solar energy deep underground for future eras to discover and utilize. Beyond the dinosaurs and the oceans, the Cretaceous Thermal Maximum served as a major turning point for the evolution of terrestrial ecosystems, specifically regarding the rise of flowering plants. While early ancestors of flowers had appeared before, it was during this intense heat pulse that Angiosperms began to truly diversify and outcompete the ancient forests of ferns and conifers. The high levels of carbon dioxide acted like a supercharged fertilizer for these plants, allowing them to spread into new environments and develop complex relationships with insects like bees and butterflies, which also saw a surge in diversity. This biological revolution forever changed the appearance of the Earth and the food sources available to animals, leading to the specialized beaks and teeth seen in many later dinosaur lineages, such as the duck-billed hadrosaurs. The world began to look much more like the one we recognize today, with colorful landscapes and a variety of fruit-bearing plants that would eventually support the rise of mammals and birds long after the giants of the Cretaceous were gone. To conclude our journey into the longest summer in Earth history, we must recognize that the Cretaceous Thermal Maximum offers a stark warning and a vital lesson for the future of our own climate. While the carbon dioxide spike of that era was driven by tectonic activity and volcanic eruptions, the resulting global warming caused a cascade of changes that reshaped the entire planet for millions of years. Today, humanity is releasing carbon dioxide rate that in some ways exceeds the geological pulses of the past, making it more important than ever to study how ancient ecosystems managed to survive or fail during such transitions. Life proved to be incredibly resilient, developing new forms and colonizing new habitats even in the face of triple-digit temperatures and rising oceans, understanding the mechanisms that eventually cooled the planet and allowed life to flourish after the heat pulse. Essential for our modern efforts to manage the global environment. Thanks for exploring this fascinating period of deep time with us, as we continue to uncover the secrets of our planet's incredible and often extreme history. After millions of years of intense heat, the Earth eventually began to cool down. This transition was not immediate, but was driven by natural processes that acted as a planetary thermostat. One of the primary mechanisms for removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is the process of silicate weathering, where rainwater reacts with rocks to trap carbon and carry it into the oceans. As the mountains continued to rise, and the landscape changed, this chemical process accelerated, gradually lowering the greenhouse effect. Additionally, the vast amounts of organic matter buried in the stagnant oceans during the Anoxic events acted as a massive carbon sink, effectively locking away the excess carbon that had fueled the global summer. This cooling period allowed the planet to stabilize and set the stage for the final chapters of the dinosaur age, where seasons became more distinct and the extreme tropical conditions retreat poles towards the equator, leading to a more familiar climate for the late Cretaceous species to inhabit once more. As the climate shifted towards cooler temperatures, new opportunities arose for smaller and more adaptable organisms. While the giants like Argentinosaurus had thrived in the peak heat, the changing environment favored species that could handle more varied conditions. This period saw the continued expansion of early birds and mammals, who were beginning to find their niches in a world dominated by dinosaurs. These creatures were often small, but their ability to survive in diverse habitats was a sign of the resilience of life. The cooling also influenced the migration patterns of many animals, as land bridges became more stable and sea levels started a very slow decline from their maximum heights. The legacy of the 10 million year summer remained visible in the fossil record, as the diversity spikes in both plants and animals provided the foundation for the ecosystems that would exist until the end of the Cretaceous period. 66 million years ago, this transition from an extreme greenhouse world to a more balanced one highlights the dynamic nature of our planet's history and life. The story of the Cretaceous Thermal Maximum reminds us that Earth is a living system constantly responding to changes in its atmosphere and geology. This epic saga of the longest summer shows that while life can endure incredible extremes, the consequences of rapid atmospheric change are profound and long-lasting, from the extinction of once dominant marine reptiles to the rise of the largest land animals to ever exist. Every part of this event left permanent mark on the tree of life. Today, we look back at these ancient records not just to satisfy our curiosity about dinosaurs, but to understand the complex feedback loops that govern our world. By studying these past events, we gain a better perspective on the challenges of modern climate change and the importance of maintaining the delicate balance that supports life on Earth as we know it. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the Cretaceous and the incredible 10 million year summer that changed the world forever. This history is written in the stones and fossils waiting for us to learn its secrets. The Western Interior Seaway was a massive body of water that split North America into two landmasses, Laramidia and Appalachia, during the peak of this 10 million year summer. Because the world was so hot and sea levels were so high, this shallow sea became a breeding ground for some of the most specialized predators in history. Large sharks, like the Squalocorax, which is often called the crow shark, scavenged the remains of fallen dinosaurs that drifted out to sea. While giant predatory fish like Xiphictinus used their lightning-fast speed to swallow prey whole in one single gulp, the fossils from these ancient waters provide a clear window into how the extreme heat fueled a high-energy ecosystem, where every creature had to adapt to constant competition and shrinking land areas. This inland sea eventually dried up as the Earth cooled, but the deposits left behind in places like Kansas and Nebraska remain some of the richest fossil beds in the world, allowing scientists to reconstruct this tropical nightmare in vivid detail for the modern age. While the massive dinosaurs captured the headlines, the microscopic world and the smaller residents of the Cretaceous land were also undergoing a radical transformation. During the thermal maximum, phytoplankton in the oceans exploded in numbers due to the warmth, creating the base for the massive food chains that supported giant marine reptiles on land. The rise of diverse insect populations was directly linked to the spread of flowering plants as butterflies. Early bees began to fill the role of pollinators. This period saw the development of complex social structures in insects, which would later become a hallmark of terrestrial life. Furthermore, the soil itself changed as the intense heat and heavy rainfall led to the creation of nutrient-rich plains that supported the massive caloric needs of herds of sauropods. Without this burst of plant and insect productivity, the giants of the Cretaceous would never have reached such monumental sizes. The thermal maximum was therefore not just a time of heat, but a period of intense biological innovation that set the stage for the modern world in ways that are often overlooked in favor of the larger and more famous fossils. How do we know so much about a summer that happened 100 million years ago? The answer lies in the tiny clues left behind in the sediment and shells of ancient organisms. Scientists use what are called paleoproxies to reconstruct past environments by analyzing the chemical isotopes of oxygen and carbon found in the fossilized shells of foraminifera, which are microscopic marine creatures. These isotopes tell a story of sea surface temperatures and the amount of carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere at the time. Researchers also look at the stomata or breathing pores of fossilized leaves, as plants in high CO2 environments tend to have fewer pores to avoid losing moisture. By combining data from ocean floor cores and terrestrial rock formations, geologists have built a high-resolution map of the Cretaceous thermal maximum, revealing a world that was both alien and strangely familiar. The precision of these modern techniques allows us to see seasonal variations and sudden spikes in temperature that occurred millions of years before humans existed, proving that the history of our planet is recorded in every layer of Earth for those with the tools to read it. One of the most fascinating aspects of this 10 million year summer was the presence of vibrant life in the polar regions, which are now frozen and barren. During the Cretaceous thermal maximum, the North and South poles lacked permanent ice sheets and were instead covered in dense forests of conifers and ferns. Fossil evidence from Antarctica and the high Arctic reveals that dinosaurs such as Hypsilophodontids and early Ankylosaurs migrated to these high latitudes to take advantage of the long summer days. While the winters still experienced periods of darkness, the temperatures remained above freezing, allowing reptiles and even cold-blooded amphibians to survive in places that today would be fatal to them. The presence of these lush polar ecosystems fundamentally changed our understanding of global climate and how heat is distributed across the planet. This polar warmth was a direct result of the high carbon dioxide levels and changed ocean currents, which acted like a global conveyor belt carrying tropical heat to the ends of the Earth, and creating a truly global tropical greenhouse environment for all life. In the Northern Hemisphere, the Cretaceous Thermal Maximum served as a catalyst for the evolution of some of the most famous armored and horned dinosaurs the world has ever seen as the climate shifted, and inland seas divided North America and Asia. Groups like the Ankylosaurs began to develop more specialized defenses, while early ceratopsians transitioned from small bipedal forms into larger quadrupedal animals with elaborate frills and horns. These changes were likely driven by the need to protect themselves from the massive Argentinosaurids and the newly emerging tyrannosauroids that were starting to grow in size. The humid forests and floodplains produced by the extreme heat provided a wealth of food for these herbivores, allowing them to experiment with different body shapes and social behaviors. This evolutionary explosion during the longest summer laid the groundwork for the famous dinosaur communities of the Maastrichtian Age, which were the final rulers of the Earth before the asteroid impact changed everything. The thermal maximum was essentially the furnace that forged the final diversity of the dinosaur kingdom. Looking back at the 10 million year summer of the Cretaceous, we see a world that was both extreme and incredibly productive. The heat was a double-edged sword that led to the extinction of legendary marine reptiles, but also paved the way for the largest land animals in history, and the rise of flowering plants that dominate our modern world. This era shows that the Earth is a complex and interconnected system where changes in the deep ocean or the atmosphere can trigger a chain reaction across every continent and ocean floor. The Cretaceous Thermal Maximum serves as a profound reminder that climate is the ultimate architect of life on our planet, dictating which species will flourish and which will fade into the fossil record. As we continue to study these ancient events, we gain a deeper appreciation for the resilience of the natural world and the delicate balance that allows us to exist today. The story of the longest summer is a testament to the power of our planet and a guide for understanding the future of life in an ever-changing environment. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the prehistoric past and the incredible heat that shaped our history.